It has been a while since I talked about the Atari VCS, and as an original backer, I thought I would do a video today reflecting upon the latest 6 months with this crazy journey with this oddball console PC hybrid. You know, this is something that not a lot of people have the opportunity to experience themselves. You know, the sales numbers of the Atari VCS are fairly low. I'm going to give you my thoughts about it. I have lots to say. I'm a huge Atari fan. I cover everything from consoles to some PCs of Atari products. Everything from Atari ST. I just did an Atari 7800 video. And then today I'm going to just talk about kind of what do I think, where they're going, what have they done, what do I think. And, you know, I've done some other videos on this topic, and I would like to share what do I think. All right, so this last 6 months, Atari really has done an eclectic gathering of games and apps on the VCS. And, you know, they started off the year continuing to offer more Atari 7800 games. And, you know, they weren't the best games, but they were games I think some people remember. You know, Centipede was pretty good. You can't use a trackball on Centipede on the VCS, but they offered it. Fatal Run was another game that they offered. And these games are fairly affordable, like $3. And so I bought all the 7800 games that they have offered on the console, as I think I wanted them to offer even more different consoles on the Atari VCS. You know, Atari Lynx is on the Evercade, and I was really hoping that they would offer some Lynx games on the VCS, and for whatever reason they haven't. As well as additional Atari classic consoles and computers, legacy consoles and computers, as I think what they mentioned them as, but they just haven't, and I don't know why, but definitely was kind of a head scratcher there, because after they went with you know, the Atari 7800, they were just offering some oddball ports. You know, there was a lot of people requesting Tempest 4000. I don't think it's a great Tempest. I'm just gonna say that. I like the original arcade one, and I think the Atari Jaguar one is my favorite, Tempest 2K. Tempest 4000, especially with the classic controller, is not that great. It's not calibrated for it. I don't think it does a good job controlling it. It was just all right. But, you know, it was still offering something very reminiscent of Atari on the Atari VCS. So while it's not the best version of Tempest, at least they were trying. They also offered rally racers. They were kind of going for like that, you know, Mario Kart style game. It's a really cheap, kind of looks like a cell phone game. It's on Switch and Steam as well. It's just another example of, you know, Atari VCS trying to offer, you know, the Atari really trying to offer something that was available elsewhere. But anyways, that came out, and there's some people that like that. But then they just took like a left turn, and they started offering a lot of DOS-based old classic PC titles. Lots of micropose ports, and you know, there was like some flight sims and some classic war strategy games. And then they even had micropose soccer. And you do need a mouse and keyboard to get it going. But yeah, they offered that, micropose soccer. I know there's some fans of that. You know, for me, and I think the majority of people that have the Atari VCS, I don't think anybody really cares. But they offered it, and it was just kind of a head scratcher for me, because it's like, you know, I think there's a lot of Atari fans that want them to do a better job at celebrating Atari. And they have classic IPs that they control. Just those are ones that I don't know. That's the part of this last 6 months I was just like, really, Atari was losing me with what they were doing with the VCS. But then another strange thing that they did was they were offering standalone 2600 games on their store for 99 cents. When, in fact, if you have a VCS, you can get these same exact games for free. That's right. They were charging for 2600 ports that were part of the Atari Vault. That makes no sense. And that was like the big, like, what are you thinking part of this last 6 months that Atari's done with the VCS, or the remnants of Atari. You know, I fully understand that this is just a shadow of what the company once was. It's a very small company, and they're doing their best at offering something. You know, for me, I'm fairly forgiving of this PC console hybrid, you know, and it's still around, so that's something. Then the good news. The good news is Atari got really smart and they continued that Recharge series, which I honestly think is some of the best things that they've done and offered with this new version of Atari. And so Breakout came out. I think Breakout was one of the better games, and it is a good use of that classic controller. But I have to say, my favorite Recharge game is Gravitar Recharge. I'm a huge Gravitar fan, and when that came out and they offered that, I did a Facebook video on it, and I really think that they did a good job. You know, and these Recharge games are being offered on Steam, Switch, other, you know, Xbox, PlayStation. I mean, they're offered on other modern platforms that are out there, but I do think that there's some people that are really drawn to the Atari versions. There's slight differences there. There's a different achievement, I think additional achievements to some of these games, but they've done a good job with that. And Gravitar is awesome. I really like what they did with that. That's like, you know, the strength of what they've done. They also offered a new IP. I talked about it on my channel. Combinera is kind of a puzzle game, and I enjoyed that. It was actually kind of a fun game. And then, you know, everything that they offer like that, and then they offer an oddball like Caddy and Batty. And you know, they probably got that cheap, or you know, the publisher wanted to offer it on the Atari VCS. Not a bad game, just something I don't think of when I think of the Atari VCS. But nevertheless, kind of a unique puzzle game with unique art style. It's just like, you know, Atari, it kind of reminds me of like trying to make a meal, going into the fridge, and you have like these really oddball leftovers and smashing them all together and trying to make something that's palatable. And that's what I think of the Atari VCS. It's just an eclectic combination of things that doesn't really still have an identity. But Atari, I do believe, is trying. So the good news is I think things are slightly getting better. And so after the kind of the weird start of the year, they started offering some awesome games. Now, Dodo, this is a great indie game. It's a $5 release. It's on iArcade, it's on Steam, and it's on the Atari VCS. And that, by hands down, one of the best kind of like throwbacks to like an early 80s arcade game, in the same vein as, you know, Mario Brothers or Donkey Kong. It's got that classic arcade feel, and I really enjoyed that game. Just a lot of fun. Played it quite a bit, and it's a great fit on the Atari VCS. Next is a brand new game that just came out, and that's BPM Boy. And if you like Marble Madness, it's like a kind of a marble style platformer. It's a platformer in which you're controlling a ball, and there's really well done designs, and I've really enjoyed what I've played of it so far. This is where Atari, I think, is hitting its stride the best it can. You know, it's not going to compete with Xbox or PlayStation or Switch. This is not that type of console. If you're getting this, you're supporting, you know, what Atari is now, or understanding that this is just really just a hobbyist, you know, serious Atari enthusiast console PC hybrid, and nothing more. I don't expect more. I'm just happy they're still around. You know, and I've like I said, there's about 60 games on this console, and you know, is that enough? I don't know. The sales of this are really low. The software isn't really selling either. You know, it's kind of existing. I'm happy to see that it's still around. I'm curious to see where it's going. I think the other thing too is I think you know, they do want to continue to support it. It looks like that way. And I just don't know. I don't know how much of a future this console has. And so the two apps that the two accessory or apps that I think that I personally still use, I do think the Xbox Cloud Gaming beta, that's kind of cool that you can use Xbox Game Pass, you know, if you have an account, and you can go in and you can play Xbox games on this, you know, through the cloud. And so I was playing Jetpack lately, and, you know, that's cool. That's cool that you can do that. I don't know if I'm going to do that every day. I mean, I'm going to get on my Xbox Series X and play it that way. But I do think that that's a cool feature, especially if you had this maybe in a separate room. It's one way of playing Xbox gaming if you don't have access to an Xbox console or PC. The other thing, too, is the Antstream Arcade. I've talked about this before. I do think it's one of the better apps for the Atari VCS, and it works. It fills in that void of all the games that Atari still has not allowed or able to get the licensing deals. You know, playing Gauntlet. That's one play of playing Gauntlet on an Atari console is using Antstream Arcade. And Ninja Gaiden's another arcade, another one. There's tons of arcade games and ways to play classic PC games and console games. Antstream Arcade is still a great service, and so I do think that kind of fills a partial void because the software hasn't always been there for the VCS. I do think it is getting slightly better. Now, the future. We have Atari's 50th anniversary at the end of the month. That's going to be huge. That's going to be huge, and I do wonder what they have in store for that. The only game that I really know that's coming is Food Fight. I don't know when Food Fight's going to drop, but they did announce that the remake is being done. I'm a huge Food Fight fan, and I know that's going to be a big game, and that's definitely very Atari. So I'm excited to see, you know, I'll look forward to seeing when that more information about that drops. If I was to give the Atari VCS a grade overall, and I'm being very objective here, I'd probably give it a C-. I do give it a pass. I do think it needs to be a lot better. The big thing why it's such a low grade is that price. That price, you know, I've talked about this for a while. That price is way too high. There was a fire sale at GameStop. They are still selling the console at full price, and in person, the price is reduced at GameStop. But, you know, for the most part, everywhere else is selling this console with a classic controller and a modern controller for $400. That's way, way too expensive. You can get a Switch significantly cheaper than that, especially a Switch Lite, even an Xbox Series S for $300. They have to be more competitive with that price if they care about selling hardware. I don't know. I still sit back and wonder, what are their goals with this hardware? You know, how long do they plan on supporting it on the market? It is definitely a head scratcher for me. I wonder sometimes if they just are doing their best and just trying to get anything on it and just see if anything sticks. But that's it. You know, it's a C- for me, 18 months in. I'm hoping it can survive, you know, maybe another 6 months. I think it's going to be tough in the long run if they don't do something, though. I don't see stores continuing to offer this if it's not going to sell. You know, stores typically aren't going to keep something on the shelves if it's not going to move. They're going to use that shelf space for something else. For the most part, this is being sold online, so that is less of an issue. But that's my thoughts. What did you think? What do you think of the Atari VCS? Is that something that you eventually want to get? Are you waiting for a sale? Do you have one? Are you satisfied with it? Please comment below. And as always, thank you for coming to my channel. I cover lots of different things from Atari to Xbox, and I want to thank you for coming here. And if you like what you see, consider hitting that like and subscribe button and clicking the bell as I'm uploading videos every week. You folks are wonderful and beautiful. Let's keep it positive. This is the Immortal Johnny Hancock, and you have a good day.